The sky over the ruined city of Varela burned red. Smoke rose from broken towers and shattered domes. The air smelled of fire and metal. Among the rubble, a young American soldier named Lisa crouched behind a fallen statue. Her pulse rifle was warm in her hands. She was alone. Her whole squad was gone. They had been ambushed by the Krell, a cruel alien race that swept through this part of space like a storm of claws and fire. Lisa was not supposed to live, but she did. She stayed still, listening. The Krell had left hours ago, but she knew they might return. Their ship still circled high above, black shapes against the blood-red sky. She had no food, little water, and her radio was dead. Rescue was not coming. She would have to find her own way off this dying world. Then she heard it. Not the sound of boots or weapons, but something softer, a weak, pained sound, like a cry caught in a throat too tired to scream. Lisa turned slowly, rifle ready. Behind a pile of cracked crystal slabs, something moved. She crept forward, heart pounding. She expected a trap. The Krell loved traps, but it was not a Krell. Half buried under the rubble lay a woman unlike any Lisa had ever seen. Her skin was pale blue, shimmering faintly like water under moonlight. Thin silver lines ran along her arms and neck, pulsing softly with a gentle light. Her long hair was black but sparkled with tiny points of silver, like stars caught in silk. One arm was bent the wrong way. A deep wound ran across her side, leaking not red blood, but something golden that glowed in the dim light. Her eyes opened. They were large, almond-shaped, and the color of warm amber. They held pain, yes, but also pride. Even broken, she looked like royalty. Lisa knew who she was. Every human child heard the stories. The Silthari, an ancient race said to be graceful, wise, and long gone. Their homeworld had been destroyed decades ago by the Krell. The princess of their line, Naira, was believed dead. Yet here she was, bleeding out in the ruins of a forgotten city. Lisa should have walked away. Humans and Silthari had never been allies. In fact, most people thought the Silthari were just myths, stories told to scare kids or sell old holovids. Command had even issued orders. If you find a Silthari, report it. Do not engage. Do not trust. But Lisa looked into those amber eyes and saw something familiar. It reminded her of her little sister back on Earth, the way she used to look when she fell off her bike and tried not to cry. Lisa lowered her rifle. She knelt beside the alien woman. "I'm not going to hurt you," she whispered, though she doubted the princess understood English. Naira's lips moved. She spoke in a language that sounded like wind chimes and distant bells. Then she coughed and more golden light spilled from her mouth. Her breathing grew shallow. Her silver veins dimmed. Lisa looked at her own hands, rough, scarred, human. She remembered what the medics always said. Silthari biology was completely different. No shared DNA. No compatible blood, nothing. Trying to help her would be useless, maybe even dangerous. But then she remembered something else, an old tale her grandmother used to tell. Long ago, before the silence between stars, humans and Silthari were friends. They shared more than trade. They shared blood. It was said that when a human gave blood to a Silthari in need, something powerful happened. A bond, a joining of fates. Lisa knew it was probably just a fairy tale, but Naira was dying, and Lisa had nothing left to lose. Without thinking, she pulled out her combat knife. She sliced open her palm. Blood welled up, red and warm. She pressed her hand against Naira's glowing wound. "Take it," she said softly, "if it helps." "Take it." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the golden blood around the wound began to swirl. It pulled Lisa's red blood into it like a magnet. Naira gasped. Her body arched off the ground. Her eyes flew open, wide, bright, and for one heartbeat they glowed red, the same color as Lisa's blood. A pulse of energy shot out from them, silent but strong. The rubble around them trembled. Dust fell from broken arches. The air hummed like a plucked string. Lisa felt it deep in her chest. A warmth, a connection, as if something inside her had been unlocked. Then Naira collapsed back, breathing deeply but steadily. The wound on her side began to close. The golden light stitched her skin back together. Her silver veins pulsed brighter now, and for the first time they carried thin red threads, like veins of human blood woven into her own. She looked at Lisa, and this time, her voice was clear, spoken in perfect English. "You gave me your blood." Lisa blinked in shock. "You speak English." "I speak all tongues now," Naira said, rising slowly to her feet. She swayed but did not fall. "Your blood. It awakened the old bond, the one they tried to erase. Before Lisa could ask what she meant, the ground shook. Krell dropships roared overhead. Their searchlights cut through the smoke, sweeping the ruins. They had found them. Nyra's eyes hardened. She raised her hand and the air around her shimmered. From the rubble, broken pieces of Siltheri crystal rose and twisted together, forming a blade of pure light. "They will not take me again," she said. Lisa knew they were outnumbered. Even with Nyra healed, they stood no chance against a full Krell patrol. "Unless, there's an old human transport hidden in the lower tunnels," Lisa said quickly. "If we can reach it, we might get off this rock." Nyra nodded. "Lead the way." They moved fast and quiet through the ruins. Lisa in front, eyes sharp, rifle ready. Nyra behind, her glowing blade casting strange reflections on the broken walls. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every sound made Lisa's finger tighten on the trigger. As they neared the tunnel entrance, 3 Krell warriors stepped into view, tall, armored, with black eyes and jagged weapons. They hissed when they saw them. Lisa raised her rifle, but before she could fire, Nyra placed a hand on her shoulder. "Trust me," she whispered. Then Nyra closed her eyes and began to sing. It was not a song with words. It was deeper than that. A vibration. A hum that came from her bones, from the air, from the very ground. The Krell froze. Their weapons trembled. Their black eyes widened in something like fear. One by one, they dropped to their knees. Then they bowed their heads. Lisa stared. What did you do?" "Your blood unlocked the resonance," Nyra explained, her voice calm. "The Silthari were never warriors. We were singers. We shaped reality with sound. But without the human bond, our voices grew weak. Now I can sing again." They reached the transport without another fight. Inside the small ship, Lisa powered up the engines while Nyra stood at the viewport watching the red sky fade behind them. "Where do we go?" Lisa asked. "To the edge of known space," Nyra said. "To the Vault of Echoes. It holds the last memory of our alliance, the truth the Krell tried to bury." As the ship jumped into the void, Lisa looked at her bandaged palm. The cut was healing fast, but beneath the skin she could feel something new, a quiet hum like a distant song waiting to be heard. Months passed. The galaxy changed in quiet ways. The Great War did not end with a single battle or a treaty signed in fire. It ended with whispers, with songs, with hands reaching across the dark. Lisa and Nyra became more than survivors. They became a bridge. They traveled in their small ship, now named the Dawn Chorus by Nyra. It carried no weapons, only supplies, messages, and hope. Wherever they went, they found signs that the bond was spreading. On frontier worlds, human medics began sharing blood with wounded Siltheri refugees. Carefully, respectfully, and healing happened faster than science could explain. In return, Siltheri singers taught humans how to listen to the hum of stars, how to calm storms with sound, how to mend broken minds with harmony. But not everyone welcomed the change. On the core worlds, powerful leaders grew afraid. They had built empires on fear of the unknown. The Krell were monsters they could point to, enemies they could sell weapons against. Now with the truth out, their power began to crack. Rumors spread of secret meetings, of orders given in shadows. One night, as the Dawn Chorus docked at a neutral station near the Orion Rim, Lisa received a coded message. It was from General Carter himself. "They're coming for you," it read, a fleet under Admiral Voss. "He calls you a traitor, says you've been brainwashed by alien magic. He's bringing you in, dead or alive." Lisa showed the message to Nyra. The princess did not look surprised. "Fear always fights back," she said quietly. "But we will not hide. They could have run. They could have vanished into the uncharted zones. But running would send the wrong message. If the bond was real, it had to stand in the light. So they stayed. 3 days later, Admiral Voss's fleet arrived. 5 heavy cruisers, black-hulled and bristling with guns. They surrounded the station. Voss himself appeared on every public screen, his face hard, his voice sharp. "Lisa Morgan," he said, "you are charged with treason, unauthorized contact with hostile non-humans, and spreading false propaganda. Surrender now or we will take the station by force." The station's people looked to Lisa and Nyra with fear in their eyes. Some backed away. Others stood firm. Lisa stepped onto the main viewing platform with Nyra beside her. She did not wear armor. She wore her old uniform, patched and worn. She spoke into the open comm, her voice calm. "Admiral Voss, I'm not your enemy, and neither is she. The Krell are the real threat. But they're not just out there." She pointed to the stars. "They're in here. She touched her chest. In the part of us that chooses fear over trust. Voss laughed. Pretty words from a soldier who forgot her duty. Then Nyra stepped forward. She did not speak to Voss. She closed her eyes and began to sing, not a loud song, not a weapon, just a single note, pure and clear, carried on the station's air and broadcast through every open channel. On the Admiral's flagship, something strange happened. The lights flickered. The weapons system stuttered. Crew members stopped in the halls, hands over their hearts, tears in their eyes. They heard it, the song of memory, of a time before walls, before lies. Voss shouted orders, but his voice cracked. He clutched his head as if in pain, because for the first time he remembered, not clearly but enough, a dream of his grandfather, an old man who once said, "We weren't always alone." The fleet did not fire. Instead, one by one, the ships powered down their weapons. On the station, people began to cheer, not loudly but with relief, with wonder. Voss's ship turned and left without another word. After that day, more humans came forward. Soldiers, scientists, teachers, children. They asked to meet Nyra. They asked to learn. Some offered their blood, not as a cure but as a promise. Lisa and Nyra set up a new home on a quiet moon called Ilara. It had clean water, green hills, and skies free of war. There, they built the first true alliance center. Humans and Silthari worked side by side. Gardens grew with both earth seeds and Silthari light vines. Children played in 2 languages. At night, songs filled the air. Human voices and Silthari tones weaving together like old friends reunited. But the Krell were not gone. Deep in the void, where no star shone, the darkness stirred. It had watched. It had waited. And now it saw its creation failing. The Krell were no longer obeying. Their minds were waking up. So the darkness sent something new. Not ships, not soldiers, but silence. A wave of quiet rolled through the outer systems. Comms went dead. Songs faded. Even the bond between Lisa and Nyra grew thin. Like a thread about to snap. People felt alone again, afraid again. Lisa woke one night gasping, her chest tight. The hum inside her was gone. Nyra stood at the window, her silver veins dim. "It's back," she whispered. The great silence. "What do we do?" Lisa asked. "We remind them," Nyra said. Not with signals. Not with broadcasts. With presence. They left Ilara the next morning, not as leaders but as friends. They visited every world touched by the bond. They sat with elders. They held the hands of the scared. They shared meals, stories, and yes, blood when needed. In a village on Series 7, a young Silthari girl was sick. Her light was fading. The local doctor said nothing could be done. Lisa knelt beside her, cut her palm, and let her blood mix with the girl's golden tears. Within hours, the girl sat up, smiling, her veins glowing red and gold. Word spread. On Titan, a human boy who had not spoken since the Krell raids heard Nyra sing and said his first word in years. "Hello." The silence began to break. One by one. Stars lit up again with song. At the heart of it all stood Lisa and Nyra, not as heroes but as proof. Proof that kindness could be stronger than fear. That giving could be braver than fighting. That 2 different beings from 2 different worlds could share one heartbeat and change everything. Years later, when the new alliance held its first grand gathering, thousands came, humans, Silthari. Even former Krell who had broken free of the darkness. They stood together under open skies, hands joined, voices rising. Lisa stood beside Nyra, older now, her hair streaked with gray but her eyes still bright. She looked out at the crowd and saw her sister in the front row holding a child, Nyra's goddaughter named Ilara. Nyra squeezed her hand. "We did it," she said. "No," Lisa replied softly. "We just started it." And as the song rose into the stars, the galaxy listened. Not because it had to, but because it finally remembered how. The ship drifted through silent space, far from the war-torn systems and burning worlds. Inside, Lisa sat in the pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the star map. Beside her, Nyra stood with her hands resting on the console, her amber eyes reflecting the glow of distant suns. The hum of the engines was steady, but something deeper filled the cabin now. The quiet pulse of their shared bond. Like a second heartbeat neither could ignore. After days of travel, they reached the edge of known space. There, orbiting a dead star, hung a small moon wrapped in ice and shadow. It looked empty, forgotten. But Nyra knew better. "This is it," she said softly. The Vault of Echoes. Lisa guided the ship down through the thin atmosphere. Ice cracked beneath the landing struts as they touched down. Outside, the surface was white and still, untouched for centuries. The only sound was the wind whispering over frozen dunes. They stepped out in heavy suits, boots crunching on the frost. Nira led the way to a smooth patch of ice that looked no different from the rest. She placed her palm on it. The ice shimmered, then split open, revealing a staircase that spiraled down into darkness. Below, the air was warm and dry. Walls of polished stone glowed with soft blue light. Murals covered every surface. Images of humans and Silthari standing side by side, hands joined, eyes bright with trust. Some showed them building cities together. Others showed them fighting not against each other, but against a shapeless darkness that seemed to swallow stars. "This is our history," Nira said, her voice full of sorrow and pride. "The Krell did not just destroy our worlds. They erased our truth." Lisa walked slowly, running her fingers over the carvings. "Why would they do that?" "Because the bond between our kinds is powerful," Nira explained. "When human blood and Silthari song join, they create something the darkness cannot touch. Hope, unity, memory. The Krell were made to break that. They are not a race. They are a weapon." Lisa stopped in front of a large circular door at the center of the vault. It was covered in symbols that shifted when she looked at them. "What's in there, the heart of the vault?" Nira said. "A device that can send a message across every star system. A message that cannot be blocked or faked, but it needs a key." "What kind of key?" "A living bond," Nira said, turning to her. "Two beings joined by blood and will. You and me," Lisa swallowed. "You want me to help you send this message?" "I need you to," Nira said. "Without you, the vault stays silent. The galaxy stays divided. The Krell keep winning." Lisa thought of Earth, of her sister, of all the people who believed the Silthari were myths. What if they heard the truth now? Would they listen, or would they call it a trick? But then she remembered the Krell warriors bowing in the ruins. She remembered the warmth in her chest when their blood mixed. She knew this was real. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." They stepped through the door. The room beyond was small and round, with a pedestal in the center. On it rested a crystal orb, dark and still. Nira placed her hand on it. Nothing happened. "It needs both of us," she said. Lisa stepped forward. She placed her hand beside Nira's on the cold surface of the orb. The moment their skin touched, light exploded through the room. Golden and red light swirled together, rising like fire and water mixing into something new. The walls of the vault lit up with images, real memories, not just carvings. Humans and Silthari laughing, fighting, healing, building, a shared past, buried but not lost. Then a voice filled the chamber. Not one voice, but thousands. Human and Silthari speaking as one. The bond is restored. Outside the vault, a signal shot into space. Not a radio wave, not a data burst, but something deeper. A resonance. A truth that could be felt in the bones of every living being who had ever wondered if they were alone. On Earth, in the United Earth Defense Command Center, alarms blared. Screens flickered. General Carter stared at the main display as footage appeared, clear, undeniable. Lisa Morgan, listed as killed in action, stood beside a Silthari woman in a glowing chamber. Their hands were joined. Their eyes were full of purpose. "That's impossible," muttered an officer. "Silthari don't exist." "Then explain that," Carter snapped, pointing at the live feed. The message played on every channel, every screen, every comm device across human space. Even ships in deep patrol received it. Colonies on the fringe reported the same signal. It could not be blocked. It could not be denied. Meanwhile, on a dozen hidden Silthari outposts, elders gathered around ancient receivers. Tears fell from their eyes as they heard the song of their lost kin, mixed with a human voice. For the first time in generations, they felt hope. Even the Krell felt it. On their warships, warriors paused. Their black eyes flickered with confusion. Deep in their twisted minds, something stirred. A memory not their own. A memory of peace. Of belonging. For a moment, the hunger for war faded. Back in the vault, the light dimmed. The orb grew still. Lisa pulled her hand away, breathing hard. She felt tired, but also stronger, like she had carried a great weight and finally set it down. "It's done," Nira said, her voice full of awe. "What happens now?" Lisa asked. "Now," Nira said. "The galaxy remembers, and those who choose to listen will find each other again." They returned to the ship. As they lifted off the icy moon, Lisa looked back at the vault, now hidden once more beneath snow and time. She knew their journey was not over. The Krell would not vanish overnight. Fear would not disappear just because the truth was spoken. But something had changed. A door had opened. And this time, it would not close. Weeks later, reports began to pour in. Human colonies near Silthari space reported no attacks. In fact, Silthari ships appeared at the edges of those systems, not to fight but to watch, to protect. On Mars, a group of scientists claimed they heard a song in the static of deep space radio. On Titan, children drew pictures of blue-skinned women with silver hair and said they dreamed of them. Lisa and Naira traveled from system to system, not as soldiers, but as messengers. They spoke to anyone who would listen. They showed the bond was real, not magic, not myth, just choice. The choice to trust, to give, to share blood when another is dying. One evening, as their ship floated near a quiet nebula, Lisa asked Naira a question that had been in her mind for a long time. Why me? Why did you let me help you? Naira smiled, her amber eyes soft. Because you saw me not as a legend or a threat, but as someone in pain. That is the first note of the true song. Lisa looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, her sister was watching the same sky. Maybe she had heard the message too. Maybe she believed. And for the first time since the war began, Lisa felt like she was part of something bigger than survival. She was part of a story that was just beginning. Time moved like a slow river on Alara. The war was over, but peace was not a place, it was a practice. Every day, Lisa and Naira worked to keep the bond alive. They taught, they listened, they healed. The alliance grew, but so did the quiet threats. Not from armies, but from doubt. From old habits. From the part of every heart that still feared what it did not understand. One morning, a small ship landed on the green fields outside the Alliance Center. It bore no flag, no markings. From it stepped a woman in a plain gray coat. Her face was tired, her eyes sharp. She asked for Lisa by name. Her name was Claire Reed. She was a historian from Earth, sent by the new Council of Unity. She carried a data crystal older than the war. This was found in the ruins of the old Earth archive, she said, handing it to Lisa. It's labeled Project Echo, it mentions you. And her. Naira touched the crystal. It hummed faintly. When they played it in the center's chamber, an old recording filled the room. A human scientist decades ago spoke with urgency. We have confirmed it, he said. The Silthari are real. They reached out to us long before the Krell came. But our leaders refused. They called it a hoax. They buried the proof. Now the Krell are here and they know we broke the bond first. They are using our silence as a weapon. The room fell still. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. Lisa looked at Naira. They knew. All this time. They knew you were real. Naira's eyes shimmered with gold tears. We tried to call. Again and again. But your world turned off its ears, Claire spoke softly. The Council wants the truth shared. Not just as history, but as a warning. If we forget again, the darkness will return. So they began a new journey. Not to fight, but to remember. Lisa, Naira, and Claire traveled to Earth for the first time since the war. The planet was healing. Cities rebuilt. Forests regrown. But in the hearts of many, the old fear still slept. They stood before the Grand Assembly in Geneva. Thousands watched, some hopeful, some skeptical. Lisa spoke first. I was just a soldier, she said. I didn't set out to change the galaxy. I just saw someone hurting, and I helped. Then Naira sang not a loud song, not a show of power, just a simple melody old as stars. As she sang, the lights in the hall dimmed and images appeared in the air, real memories pulled from the vault of echoes. Humans and Silthari planting trees together, sharing meals, dancing under twin moons, crying at the same funeral. A child in the front row began to cry, not from sadness but from recognition. I dreamed this, she whispered. After the assembly, people lined up for hours, not to ask for weapons or promises, but to say thank you, to say they remembered now, to say they were sorry for forgetting. But not everyone was moved. In the shadows of the city, a group called the Pure Earth Front watched. They believed humans should stand alone, that mixing with aliens, especially Silthari, was unnatural. They called Lisa a traitor. They called Naira a ghost. One night, as Lisa walked back to her quarters, 3 men blocked her path. They wore no uniforms, but their eyes were hard. You think you saved us, one said, but you opened the door for them to take over. Lisa did not raise her voice. No one is taking over. We're just learning to share the sky. They lunged, but before they could reach her, Naira appeared from the alley, her hand raised. She did not strike. She sang one low note. The men froze. Not from fear, but from feeling. Memories they never knew they had surfaced, of a grandmother humming a strange tune, of a dream where the stars spoke in silver voices. They dropped to their knees, not in surrender, but in sorrow. I don't know why I hate her, one whispered. Because someone taught you to, Naira said gently. But your blood remembers the truth. She offered her hand. After a long pause, he took it. News of the encounter spread. Instead of anger, it sparked conversation. Schools began teaching the true history. Artists painted murals of human and Silthari hands joined. Musicians blended earth instruments with Silthari chimes. Meanwhile, deep in space, something else stirred. On a dead moon near the Krell homeworld, a single Krell warrior stood alone. His armor was cracked. His eyes, once black, now held a flicker of amber. He had heard the song. It echoed in his mind, breaking the chains of the darkness. He removed his helmet. Beneath it, his face was scarred, but his expression was calm. He placed a hand on the cold stone and hummed. A broken, rough sound, but trying. Light answered. From the ruins around him, tiny Silthari crystals glowed. They had been waiting. Dormant, but not dead. The first Krell to choose peace sent a signal. Not a threat. A question. Can I come home? When the message reached Dalara, Lisa and Nira sat in silence for a long time. They were never monsters. Nira finally said, they were lost children. Then we go get them, Lisa said. They prepared the dawn chorus for one last voyage. Not to conquer, not to punish, but to welcome. As they lifted off, the people of Alara gathered to watch. Children waved. Elders sang. The wind carried their voices into the sky. On the bridge, Lisa looked at Naira. Do you think it will work? Naira smiled. The bond is not about certainty. It's about trying. And so they flew, not toward war, but toward healing. Toward the broken pieces of a galaxy learning, slowly, how to be whole again. Far behind them, on 100 worlds, people looked up and felt it, the hum in their blood, the song in their bones. They were not alone. They never had been, and this time they would not forget. The dawn chorus moved through the void like a quiet breath. Its engines hummed softly, its hull scarred but strong. Inside, Lisa checked the navigation screen while Naira sat by the viewport, her fingers tracing patterns in the condensation on the glass. They were heading into the dead zone, the region once ruled by the Krell, now silent and empty. No signals, no ships, no life, or so everyone thought. But they had received the message. One word, sent on a broken frequency, home. It came from the last known Krell stronghold, a fortress moon called Vorthax. Once a place of screams and steel, now just a shadow in the dark. As they neared the moon, sensors picked up faint energy readings. Not weapons, not engines. Something gentler, like a heartbeat. He's still there, Naira said. You think he's alone? Lisa asked. Maybe not anymore. They landed in a wide crater far from the old fortress. The air was thin, cold, and still. No wind, no sound, just gray dust and broken towers in the distance. They walked slowly, boots crunching on ash. Halfway to the fortress, a figure appeared on the ridge above them. Tall, armored, but without a weapon. The Krell who had sent the message, he did not speak. He simply turned and walked toward the fortress. They followed. Inside, the halls were dark but not empty. Dozens of Krell stood in silence. Some still wore armor. Others had removed it, revealing skin marked with old wounds and strange, faint silver lines. Like the veins of Silthari, but dim. In the center of the main chamber, a pool of water glowed softly. In it floated shards of Silthari crystal, pulsing with weak light. The lead Krell knelt by the pool. He placed a hand in the water. The light brightened slightly. They made us forget, he said, his voice rough, broken by disuse. They cut the song from our minds, made us hate what we once loved. Lisa stepped forward. Who made you? The silence, he replied. The thing that lives between stars. It feeds on division. It shaped us from broken Silthari minds and human fear. We were never born. We were built. Naira's eyes filled with sorrow. She walked to the pool and knelt beside him. You are not what they made you. You are what you choose to be. She placed her hand in the water. Golden light spread from her fingers. The crystals flared. The silver lines on the Krell's skin began to glow. One by one, the others stepped forward. They touched the water. They wept, black tears that turned gold as they fell. Lisa watched, heartful. This was not victory. This was healing. Over the next days, they worked together. Lisa helped repair the old life systems. Naira sang to the crystals, waking them fully. The Krell, now calling themselves the Freed, began to speak their true names. Names they had buried under orders and rage. One young Freed named Kale showed Lisa a hidden room. Inside were records, images of the first Silthari who had tried to help the broken minds that would become the Krell. They had been killed, their message erased. We were taught they were enemies, Kale said, but they were trying to save us. Back on Alara, news of the mission spread. Some were afraid. They're bringing Krell here, people whispered. But others remembered the song. They remembered the hum in their blood. So when the dawn chorus returned, it did not come alone. Behind it flew 3 freed ships, small, quiet, bearing no weapons. The people of Alara gathered at the landing field. At first, they stood in silence. Then a child stepped forward, a girl with red hair and silver eyes, born of human and Silthari parents. She held out a flower. One of the freed knelt. Slowly, gently, he took it. That small act broke the last wall. In the weeks that followed, the freed learned to speak, to farm, to laugh. They built homes beside human and Silthari ones. They joined the songs at night. Their voices were rough at first, but with time they found harmony. Lisa and Naira watched from a hill one evening as the 3 peoples shared a meal under the twin moons. Children played together, human Silthari freed, chasing fireflies that glowed blue and gold. Do you think it will last? Lisa asked. Nothing lasts forever, Naira said. But this can last as long as we choose it. Then a new signal came, not from the void, not from war, but from deep in the Andromeda galaxy. Faint but clear, a song, different but familiar. Another species reaching out. The Council of Unity met the next day. Some wanted to wait, to be careful. But Lisa stood and spoke. Once we waited, and the silence grew. This time we answer. So they prepared a new ship, not a warship, not a scout, but an ark of voices. It carried singers, healers, teachers, and one freed elder who now spoke with the calm of a mountain. Lisa and Naira would not go this time. Their work was here, tending the garden they had planted. But they stood on the launch field as the ark lifted into the sky. On its side was painted a single symbol, 3 hands joined, human Silthari freed. As the ship vanished into the stars, Naira took Lisa's hand. Their palms still bore the old scars, but the blood beneath them sang the same song. Far away on 100 worlds, people felt it, the hum growing stronger. Not just between 2 kinds, but many. The galaxy was waking up, and this time, no one would silence it. Years later, when travelers came from Andromeda, they brought stories of new bonds, new songs, new names for the old truth: we are not alone, and we never were. Lisa, now gray-haired but bright-eyed, would sit with them under the stars and say, it all started with a choice, to help someone who was hurting. And the children would listen and remember and pass it on, because the greatest weapon against the dark was never a gun or a shield. It was a hand, offered in kindness, and a song shared in trust.